Vince, are you excited for the start of Rapid Fire?
Oh, there's some good questions in here. And we're going to talk about a movie that I have seen numerous times.
All right.
So I'm fired up about that one.
Right. I'm excited.
Freaking great flick.
I even threw a little bit of a curveball. I slipped a question in that you're not ready for here. I don't think it'll trip you up too much. But
all right. That's ominous.
Fill in the blank with this first one. We are in a blank period for Notre Dame football.
I think we're in a, well, there's two ways I was going to answer this question, right? So blank period as in it's about to be July. It's about to be the most boring possible time for Notre Dame football. Like that was one way I was going to go.
Right.
But then another way I was going to go was this could be a golden age for Notre Dame football is in like the macro view. You know what I mean? So you got the micro view is in July sucks because there's just nothing going on. But then you've got like the macro view of, things are trending really, really well with Notre Dame right now. We could be entering a golden period for Notre Dame football. So I answer it two different ways.
I like that. And I was wondering which way you would go with this because I had my idea in my head and I wanted to leave this sort of as open-ended as possible. And, like you said, if you go micro and you look at it literally, or maybe even like God's nuclear ICBM is saying, dead, but very hot as well.
I know, right?
Like
it's awful.
Literally, that's the period we're in right now.
Which is why I'm not worried about going to Arkansas.
Yes.
I wasn't worried about going to Texas A&M because we always get stretches up here in Northern Indiana where it's awful, and they practice in it and they'll be fine. So like the whole weather conversation always makes me laugh.
I know.
Because they act like it's always, 20 degrees up here, but anyway, sorry, continue.
No, that's okay. But then you have, it's kind of piggybacking on what you were saying, what Mike says, Golden Age 2.0. And that's kind of where I am. I think that when you look at everything that's gone on in the past, 6-7 months, and where Notre Dame is with recruiting and Marcus Freeman going into year 4, this very well could be the most transformational period of Notre Dame football in more than 3 decades when you sit back and look at it. Because, Brian Kelly, year 3, got him to the national championship game, not a very competitive national championship game, obviously, in 2012. They had some recruiting successes. They got Jalen Smith not long after that. And, he came in the next year. So, he was already pretty much committed by that point. But I think that what they're doing right now, coming off, it took Kelly 6 more years to get back to the playoff where it was expanded. You know what I mean? So it took a while. It's not going to take that long for Marcus Freeman to have Notre Dame back in the college football playoff. Again, we all expect that they're going to be regulars now. When you look at what they're doing with the roster and the kind of recruiting, the quality recruiting that he's doing, he and his staff are doing, we haven't seen this since Lou Holtz. And that was, again, it's 30 plus years ago. And so I just think that this is, again, credit where credit is due. Brian Kelly with what he did. I would say more building the foundation, laid the foundation for what Marcus Freeman has taken and run with now. And this is, again, I just think it's probably going to go down. When we look back 10 years from now, it's going to be the most transformational period of Notre Dame football since the Holtz era.
Yeah, I mean, we could be on the precipice of something really exciting. It's already exciting, but we could be on the precipice of something that's just really, really great for Notre Dame football. I really do feel like that. I mean, everything just points to being the success of Marcus Freeman, the success of the program, everything that they're pouring into the program. I mean, just everything is pointing up. And I don't want to be, overly enthusiastic or overly positive, but it's hard not to be. I mean, the last time Notre Dame was in the national championship game was, of course, 2012. And we were all excited that Notre Dame was there. But I don't think anybody really thought, especially you, you were there physically, like in the building. Like you go into that game, you're like, I just don't think this is going to happen. And you didn't get the feeling like this is going to be an annual situation. It was like, oh, this is
not afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Not afterwards,
because they got to hand it to them. You know what I mean? And yes, they were there, but it was a different feeling than they were there this past year and the way that game played out. You know what I mean? With all the injuries that Notre Dame suffered through this past season and still made it to the national championship, like if they would have had half of those guys back, it's a different game, you know? And so never got that feeling in 2012. Certainly hadn't had that feeling in a long time. Like 2018 when they went to the playoff, you just like, it wasn't good. You know what I mean? Like just haven't felt that way in a long time. Now it feels like this is sustainable. Like that's the difference.
Yeah. I remember like the early 2000s after I first got here, and like the old timers who had been around the block, and they're talking about, oh, when are we going to find the next Vinnie Soriano, the recruiting guru for Lou Holtz and all that kind of stuff. Oh, it was such, like I think that maybe it's taken a bit longer than people thought, but like they're at a place where I think that they, whether it's like that one certain guy or what, I think the guy who is the the figurehead of this program has just been such a huge part of it, because you hear all these players talk about Marcus Freeman, the way they talk about him, the way he's a player's coach, and the way he, not just him, but him and his staff relate to people, the way they treat people, the whole thing. Obviously, it just appears like it's a lot different than most other places around the country, because you don't hear a lot of those same things coming up at these other places. Other places still recruit really well, but you don't hear them say the kind of things that these Notre Dame guys are saying after they come here.
Yep, no doubt.
Tyler Buchner, of course, switched his jersey number from 26 to number 10 this offseason. Is there any way that this is not a signal that he's going back to the quarterback room, Vince?
I mean, is there a chance that he doesn't? Sure, there's a chance. I just feel like even though he's still listed as a wide receiver on the roster, he's going to move to quarterback at the very least part-time, at the very least during camp, that kind of a deal. I just don't see how that's not going to be the case. So it makes sense that would be what is going to happen. We all speculated about it, and then the roster came out, and now he's got a quarterback number, and it's like, okay, this is happening. Maybe he's just a senior who got to get a better number. Yeah, not
I mean, 10 is a better number than 26,
right? No shade.
There's just no other way to look at it.
No shade to Saquon Barkley and other people that wear 26, but 10's a better number when you are a potential quarterback or whatever. It's just a better number. Okay, so I think it's great, and I think it's the right move for Notre Dame to make.
I mean, it just makes sense. You lose a scholarship quarterback to the transfer portal. Oh, by the way, hey, we've got a guy who used to be a scholarship quarterback who's a walk-on now. And maybe instead of having him run routes or even throw short passes to other wide receivers, we just put him back in the quarterback room, because there's obviously a great benefit to having Buckner there, whether it's scout team, if Marcel Reed ends up being the Texas A&M quarterback, then Tyler Buchner is going to be the scout team quarterback for Texas A&M week, ditto for Navy, or whoever the mobile quarterbacks are. That's when Tyler Buchner is going to be the scout team quarterback that week, and he was doing obviously some of that last year, and it just makes sense. You needed somebody else in that room, and now you've even though one of them, him, is still a walk-on now, you've essentially got 4 scholarship quarterbacks in that room again now.
Right. And
plus the other guys
you've got 5 arms that can throw passes in camp, which is important. I mean, he was already dabbling at the quarterback position, like you said, for Navy week and, Army and all those different things. So he was already dabbling. Now the jersey number makes sense. You just make the full move, call it a day. He wasn't going to see the field as a wide receiver. He's not going to see the field as a quarterback. Maybe he sees the field on special teams or something along those lines, and that's fine. But he's way more valuable to you right now with the loss of Steve Angeli, right? A legit arm in practice. With the loss of Steve Angeli, he makes more sense and is more valuable to you as a program and a roster over the quarterback position.
By the way, I just remember, because Joseph says Vinnie C was the man, Vinnie Soriano. I think that one of the chief guys beating the drum was your guy, Tony Catan's, right, back in the day.
I'm sure.
For the Vinnie Soriano resurgence. You know,
I love Tony so much. He was like a second father to me growing up. He's a huge Steve Angeli fan too. By the way,
was he? Well, you got the Italian thing. So,
oh man, he and I went toe to toe this past year in the old tailgating parking lot, and he was letting me have it about Steve Angeli, so that was fun. But yeah,
used to tailgate with him before Father Andy became Father Andy. So
this is accurate. Yes,
got to hear all of that. Kind of good stuff.
He taught me how to tailgate. I'll just say that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Way back in the day,
he's a master tailgater.
He is a master tailgater.
I will give him that. I'll give him credit though too, because Urban Meyer was at Bowling Green, after he left Notre Dame when he got that head coach, and he was always beating they need, like when Bob Davie was stinking it up, he's like, they need to bring Urban Meyer back and make him the head coach. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to hire the Bowling Green coach to coach Notre Dame, even though he's been here. Right. And obviously it didn't take long. And look what Urban Meyer
small stint at Utah. And then all of a sudden he's a hot commodity. So Tony's been right about a lot of things. Just not about
I'll give him a pass on the Angeli.
Yeah, we'll give him a pass on that one. We'll give him a pass. His son Jimmy listens to the show a lot too. So
does he?
I hope he's listening on this particular show. So yeah.
Jimmy, that was his youngest son.
The little,
right?
The little. Well, he's not little anymore, but
he carved us up at Adams on the mound one year.
Oh, did he really?
Pitching for Marion.
Did he really? I know he was more of a baseball player than his brother Joe, because Joe was my age, and Joe played quarterback. He was a quarterback at Marion, but I know Jimmy played some baseball. He carved you up.
They did. Yeah, it was not a. It was I don't even want to think about it. No, I remember him. Because he used to run around at the tailgates, and then saw him doing some other stuff. Some little event. He was like working for one of the catering companies or something like that at the thing that we do, and then it's like, there's that freaking Jimmy Catan's right, just pumping the strike zone, and we're not hitting anything.
Just pumping strikes in. Because look, he is a grown man, obviously, at this point. Like, that's how old we are. But like when I was in high school, and we would go over there and hang out, because Joe is the oldest brother. He's my age, and Jimmy was like 4 at that time. Like, he was little, and so I just remember little Jimmy running around, taking our car keys so we could spend the night, that kind of stuff. And now he runs the Catan's right tailgate. So it's like that's
does he?
That's where we are in our lives.
Maybe he owes me a refreshment.
I think he definitely does. He wants us to come every time he's out there. So we'll have to make a point to get out there this year.
All right. If I'm invited, I'll do that.
You're invited. At the very, very, very least, which I know is not the case, but at the very least, you're my +1. We'll make it happen.
All right. All right. TD4ND wants to know if Buckner will be the kick holder this year. Good question, I think.
I
think it would make sense to have him out there. Like your number 4 quarterback, basically, that kind of athlete. Like look, they showed that they could use him for a fake. I think having him out there puts the other team on alert that a fake could happen at any time. It, like, makes them prepare for that.
I know Anthony Rizak really wants that job, the walk-on quarterback. I had heard that through the grapevine randomly at some point, so I'm sure there's going to be a competition for that job. It'll either be a walk-on, which will be Buckner or Rizak, or it'll be the punter. But Notre Dame's in a very interesting punter situation, because he's Australian and has never done holding and things like that. But usually a team's punter is also the holder, because all those specialists just work together off to the side all the time, and you can't pull your quarterback. Because, back in the day, it used to be the backup quarterback. That's not plausible anymore for the way things are run, right? So it's usually a specialist or a walk-on. And so, I would think that Tyler Buchner would be up for that job.
Hey, Tony Romo was the holder for a while.
He was.
Joe is definitely voting for Rizak, the Omaha native.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
I don't know. We shall see. We shall see.
Yeah. It's a great question, though.
So we just had Niele Ivey on as our guest to start the show today, and we talked about every scholarship player on the roster for the upcoming season, including Incoming freshman forward Leah Macy, who's from the state of Kentucky. She unfortunately tore an ACL during her team's Kentucky State tournament. And so I asked Ivy what Macy's prognosis is for this season.
I mean, she's, in the recruiting or the rehabbing process. She had surgery, I think, in February. So it's really another, it's going to be a test with the performance team to see where she is. She's doing great in her rehab. She's ultimate worker. It's just unfortunate the timing, but she's been after it in the rehab process, and we'll look at that as it comes closer to the season. And usually it's probably a 6 to 9 month process as far as the rehab process. So we'll assess that as that time comes, which closer to being cleared. But she's doing a great job right now of just getting stronger and doing whatever she needs to do. Ann and our performance team they have been doing a great job of helping her this summer. And Leah's been great. Fortunately, she got a chance to come back to South Bend to get her surgery, and so she's been working with our doctors and trainers for the last couple of months, which I think is going to really help her down the road.
Okay, Vince. So there's Niele Ivey. What's that say to you about Macy's short-term future?
Well, that says that she's going to play this year. That's what it tells me.
You think it does?
I think it does. Yeah.
I'm a little bit more on the other side,
because she said 6 to 9 months. 6 months is August. 9 months is what? November?
That's true.
So I mean, I don't know if I was planning on her sitting the whole year, I would not have given a 6 to 9 month timetable. That's the only thing I took out of it.
Good point. I guess maybe in my head I was thinking 6 to 9 months from now when I was. Maybe that's what I was thinking. But you're right, because it was last February,
right?
But we had 2 injuries in a row for Notre Dame, Olivia Miles and then Kylie Watson, who both had February, March injuries. So right around the same time period, and neither one of them
they hung it up.
Ended up playing the next season. Yeah.
Right. So that's the trend from women's basketball, obviously. I just wonder if, maybe she's even pushing, Macy's even pushing to play, as a freshman. And, let me ask you this, because you know this better than I would. As a freshman, a true freshman and all of that, if she was 100% healthy, is she contributing this year? Was that always the goal? Or would she have been sitting behind some of these transfers?
Oh yeah, if she was 100% healthy, if not for the ACL, she probably would have been like Maddie Westbeld. You would have expected her to, because that's kind of the position that she, you would expect her to roll in. And if she wasn't in the starting 5, she would have probably been, 6th person off the bench type of thing is what I would guess.
Gotcha.
With the recruiting, profile that she's got, she's top 20 player in the country and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
That, I guess, again, Coach Ivey better than I do. I was going off of what she was saying. If I didn't want her to play, or if I didn't foresee her playing this year, I would have said, well, it could be up to a 9 month plus, recovery or something along those lines.
That's true.
Who knows?
Because 9 months is 9 months from last February is November.
Yeah.
So
there's still a lot of basketball to be played in November.
Because even if it's December and she's able to go, then, like you said, it's a lot.
Just saying.
It sounded very wait and see to me, which I think it has to be when you're talking ACLs and all that.
For sure. It didn't hurt, number one, that she got everything done by the Notre Dame doctors. And so she's been in town, on campus, doing all the rehab with Notre Dame. And so there's no transition or anything like that. She's been with Notre Dame the whole way. I think that's a big one. And so, we'll see what it looks like, obviously, moving forward, and see if she's out, at shoot-arounds and things like that you get to see. You might get a better idea of what she looks like, when the season starts to tip off, in October, November, and that area, you know what I mean? So I think it's a possibility. I do.
I'll take your optimistic view. Hey,
it's a red letter day. Circle it on the calendar. June 25th. I'm being optimistic.
Joe wants to know, as the voice of Notre Dame women's basketball, if I get special treatment for interviews. I don't know what special treatment is.
Well,
I requested an interview and was, Niele Ivey is very generous with her time. We usually get her, at least once, if not twice, and we've had, players and stuff like that on. And I don't know if it's special treatment as much as the answer can't be yes if you don't ask the question, right? So
Dang right.
ask, and as much as possible, we receive. I know the other outlets talk to the players and coaches and stuff like that too. They get interviews as well. I have no idea, like,
Joe, don't let him fool you. He's first in line. He's Sean's the man. He's trying to, low key it, but yeah, that's my take.
Okay. Well, if that's your answer, then I can live with that as well.
There you go. I think so. I think he gets special treatment, and deservedly so. Deservedly so. Because here's the other thing, though, too. You also do the interviews that we've used on the show before for like pregame and like halftime and stuff like that.
True.
Nobody else is getting those. And
That's
so
true.
You get those, and then you can use them on the show too. So
very true.
There you go.
Very true. And next month, at least one, if not two players, and working on some men's basketball stuff.
See, man,
as well.
I'm telling you. If you could get Garrity on the show, then I know you get special treatment. That's where I'm at.
All right.
So
see if we can make it happen.
That's the bar.
That's it, huh?
Yep.
Like that's the standard now.
Yep. That's where we are at. Because I'm excited about that one.
Okay. Well, you might have to be here and ask some questions.
This is what I was going to say that. I mean, if it happens in the summertime, let's roll.
Okay.
I'm there.
See if we can do it.
Okay.
In the meantime, let's see if we can guess the season over-under win total for the Texas A&M Aggies. So, interesting schedule. I don't think it's necessarily a brutal schedule by any means. They start off with UT San Antonio. Then they play Utah State. And then Notre Dame in week 3, followed by Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida, Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri, South Carolina, Samford with an M, and then at Texas to close the season. That's a very manageable schedule.
It's a very manageable schedule, and I still just love that game number 11 that all these SEC teams have.
No, I know.
I just don't get how they get away with that, but whatever. It's in November and you're playing Samford. Like, what are we doing? Anyway, okay. So there are some guaranteed wins on here. There are some toss-ups, right? So that's my biggest issue. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I see 7 to 8 wins and then a couple of toss-ups in there. That's where I'm at.
I would agree with that.
Okay. So
I'm at 7.5. I think it's going to be 7.5.
I'm stuck between 7.5 and 8.5. I feel like they're going to get the benefit of the doubt because of Elko, because of some different things. And now, like I said, there are some toss-up games there. Now, their hardest games are on the road. That's the hardest thing for me because they go on the road to Notre Dame, they go on the road to LSU, and they go on the road to Texas. Like those are going to be the 3 hardest games of the year, and they're all on the road. That's tough.
Yep.
That's really, really tough, and that's a big ask. But if they lose all 3 of those games, that means they have to hold serve at home. So that would be 9 wins if they lose all 3 and then win the rest, which would mean they have to win at home against South Carolina, win at home against Florida, win on the road against Arkansas, those kinds of things. I'm going to go 8.5. I'm going to go 8.5, thinking maybe they go 1-2 in that 3-game, like tough, their toughest 3 games on the road. So I'll go 8.5.
They started off 7-1 last year with their only loss, of course, being Notre Dame. But then they finished the regular season 1-3, and then they lost to USC in the Las Vegas Bowl as well. But the losses at the end of the season: South Carolina, Auburn, and Texas. They beat Florida, they beat Arkansas, they beat Missouri, they beat Mississippi State last year. I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to stick with 7.5. I can see it being 8.5, but I'm going to go 7.5.
All right. You're just a Mike Elko hater, I guess.
And the answer is 7.5.
Oh, come on!
Yes.
Pound the over. I believe you. It's disappointing. I felt good about 8.5 on that one too.
They've got some questions.
They do.
And I'm
not sold on the quarterback.
I'm not either.
With you, I know a lot of people are real high on him. I'm not sold. I mean,
everybody was high on Wigman last year,
and
look what happened.
Like,
yeah. Reed was the guy by the middle of the season,
right?
Basically. So I don't know, and they lost a lot on the defensive line. As good as that defensive line was last year, their secondary was not good last year. Now, obviously, they've gone out like everybody else and added some players in the portal, but
and they're not afraid to spend money. That's for sure.
That's right. But I don't know. Carter Carls, though, will be joining me next week.
Go.
And we'll talk a little Texas.
You should ask him what he thinks the over-under should be. There's a question for you right there, buddy.
There you go. That's a good start.
I never gave anything to you.
Yep. Wisconsin is suing Miami, accusing the Hurricanes of tampering. It stems from former Wisconsin freshman cornerback Xavier Lucas transferring to Miami this offseason. Wisconsin refused to honor Lucas's wish to enter the portal because he'd signed a 2-year deal with Wisconsin's NIL collective and a 2-year revenue sharing contract with the school, which would kick in once the house settlement was finalized. So Lucas transferred to Miami anyway, even though Wisconsin tried to keep him from going into the portal. And at that point, Wisconsin put out a statement accusing Miami of tampering. So, Vince, how significant do you think this lawsuit is with one school suing another school for tampering with a player in the transfer portal?
I mean, it's significant because I think schools are trying to take back the narrative a little bit, trying to take back some of the power when it comes to all of these transfers and, how all of this goes down. So I think this is a feeble attempt at doing that because, look, it's the pot calling the kettle black. If you're saying that, only they tampered and, Wisconsin's never tampered. We've never tampered with anybody. What are you talking about? Like, I just find that hard to believe too, right? And I would find it hard to believe on any university, including Notre Dame, right? The fine line of what is tampering, what is not tampering. And so it's significant in that a school is pushing back. I just don't think it's going to go anywhere because I'm sure they do the exact same thing. It's sour grapes, for the whole situation. It's sour grapes. But I think it also, if you're going to sign a 2-year deal, like that's the thing that stood out to me with this. If you're going to sign a 2-year contract, then you're stuck. Like
that's sort of like, it shouldn't be a gray area, but it seems to be a gray area. That like Wisconsin was saying, look, he signed a contract for a 2-year NIL deal with us. And like, even without the rev sharing, like it feels like
there should be a
player,
buyout
because all these players have agents now. Yeah.
Correct.
Is there some kind of buyout?
Yeah.
Do you have to pay this back? What's going on? Like, how much did he receive? All this different stuff. But the kid also technically wasn't in the transfer portal. Now, as a school, you're not supposed to be able to disallow a player from entering the transfer portal. That's the old system. That's why we have, it's like back in the Bill Snyder days at Kansas State when he wouldn't, allow guys to go to, he'd make out a list of 50 schools that they couldn't go to. That's why you've got the transfer portal and coaches aren't allowed to have say over any of this anymore.
But like if players want that protection of a 2-year deal, a 2-year contract, and you're going to sign that contract, there should be responsibility towards that too. So
definitely agree with that.
I see both sides of it. Like if you wanted to transfer, if you had the thought of possibly transferring, sign a 1-year deal. You know what I mean? Like don't lock yourself in. Or if you're going to break the contract, there should be repercussions.
How binding is the contract? Because that's going to be part of this. It's not just going to be the tampering aspect. How binding are these NIL contracts that these guys?
So like, is Miami going to pay his let's say this matures into a situation where, okay, now when people sign contracts, now there's buyouts, just like a coach, right? If you get fired, there's buyouts. If you get cut from the roster, in college, could there be a buyout situation? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're going to sign these contracts, if you're going to hit the transfer portal, do you have to have a buyout? You know, that kind of a thing. So is Miami in the future going to have to pay Wisconsin to get this kid? Right? Like, I think this opens up a whole can of worms to a degree, but I also think it could put some guardrails in. You know, like if we're going to treat this like professional sports, then maybe it needs to be treated like professional sports.
I know one thing. Pat Narduzzi is watching this thing. Like if he could, if this is successful, he's going to backdate this sucker, and he's going to go back. Look out, Lincoln Riley.
Yeah,
he's going to get you for Jordan Addison.
Jordan Addison, baby.
When it's all said and done. Like if Pat Narduzzi has his way, he's going to be all over it. Yeah, but it's going to be really interesting to watch this and kind of see how this plays out, and see if Wisconsin has any kind of success, because if they do, then either, you know, maybe it does kind of curtail some of this stuff a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to see schools suing each other right and left.
I'm all for player rights, and I think the transfer portal does allow for that, but I also think the schools need to be protected to a degree as well. Like if they're going to be shelling out all of this money now, you know, due to the house settlement and all of these things, if they're shelling out all of this money, there needs to be some protections. You know what I mean? Like the kid that transferred to Alabama for like 2 weeks, took all their money, or no, transferred away from Alabama to like Missouri or whatever it was, took all their money and then went back. Like that's messed up. Like that's a messed up situation. There needs to be some sort of guardrails that also protects the institution, and the kids aren't just running wild, you know? So like, I'm okay with that too.
Well, and that like isn't Iamalava, the younger one from Arkansas, wasn't there some of that? Like, didn't he take some money from Arkansas before he went to UCLA? And
right. So like,
was there for 5 minutes.
I would have no problem with there being guardrails on that sort of thing. Like you got to pay the money back if you're not going to actually play for the team. You know what I mean? If you're not on the roster when the season starts, then you don't get to keep the money. You know, you're actually paying for a service, and if you're not providing the service, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Seeing like Justin is saying, didn't we tamper with Riley Leonard? He says, I remember the timing being very suspect. Rumors he was coming to Notre Dame before Elko left and before he had entered the portal. Here's part of the problem is like there's such a gray area with what exactly is tampering, because you have back channels and all that, you know, just like
agents,
just like in coaching searches, you know, they're like, even if it's not, you know, head coach A or even some assistant or somebody officially on the staff talking to the player, you still have middlemen involved.
Absolutely.
You have, you know, agents.
Well, now those middlemen are paid because they're agents.
Yeah.
And those things absolutely exist. I know for a fact that there's like 7-on-7 coaches that act as agents and get a finder's fee.
See, and there you go. Like Tunsa says he was talking to Hartman, you know, perfect.
Absolutely. And
players are allowed to talk to each other.
You know, I mean, it is what it is. And so, and that's why I said when we first started talking about this question, every school does it. And I said, including Notre Dame, you know, and they're not necessarily breaking the rules. They're finding ways around the rules. So I'm not like throwing everybody under the bus, but if you're going to sue somebody, like that's a little like, okay, we're going to sue you for what everybody's doing, you know, like, so I see both sides of it. I do. There needs to be more rules. And that's why this, in theory, this NIL commission that they're going to put together, that's going to oversee a lot of these NIL deals, I'm hoping they have a little bit of teeth, because they can put some rules in place when it comes to signing contracts and entering the portal and breaking contracts and all of those things. I'm hoping that they can actually, you know, keep some things in check. That would be a good thing moving forward.
Fill in the blank. The Pac-12 has agreed to a new TV contract with CBS that'll run through the 2031 season. It's basically for a handful of football games, some like the basketball conference championship game and that kind of stuff. It is not a huge package, but beginning next year, the Pac-12 conference is going to include Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Utah State, Oregon State, and Washington State. It's a lot of states. They're also expected to add Texas State, as well as Gonzaga in everything but football. Vince, that conference will be blank.
Renamed the state conference, and Gonzaga is no longer allowed to be a part of it unless they change their name to Gonzaga State. This is not a conference that I have any interest in watching. The Pac-12 used to be interesting. This is not interesting to me. This is a group of 5 conference, group of 6, I guess now.
They might call it the Pac-12, but this is not the Pac-12.
No,
I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
It's basically an over-bloated
right
Mountain West Conference.
Well, they need to go back to like Pac-8. Well, there's 7 football, and then there's 2. So the Pac-9, like they've at least been consistent over their history of trying to at least match the number to the actual teams that are in their conference. I think they need to follow through with that. They need to be the Pac-9, and they need to be okay with the fact that they're a group of 6 team now. That's
Christopher is correcting you. He says all football is interesting. But like, I would actually like if they put this on at 10 o'clock Saturday night, I would probably watch some of these games.
Because I'm probably in the middle of doing a post-game show, and so I would probably have that on the side.
Yeah.
I would say, Christopher, while I agree with you in spirit, you have never seen 2 really bad teams play against each other. It's not good, and it's not fun to watch. I have witnessed many terrible games. Some of the ones are teams I've coached. They're just not fun to watch. I mean, that's just the be-all, end-all of it. But I agree with your point in theory, Christopher, that all football is good. When you get to college, I would hope that would be the case. It's just this is a group of 5 level conference now. That's
like
all.
Justin is asking if the champ will get an auto bid to the college football play. They will not. They will be instead of it's now the Power 4 instead of the Power 5, and it is now the group of 6 instead of the group of 5, and that's where the Pac-12 will be. They will be a group of 6 team. What used to be referenced as the group of 5. That's what the Pac-12, for good or bad, will be. They'll be the group of 6. It's just, again, I'd watch it on a late night Saturday night.
Right.
When I come home from a Notre Dame football game and I'm vegging on the couch if there's nothing else on and I'm, needing something to watch. But other than that, it's just not that compelling, I don't think.
Yeah. Agreed. And look, good for those schools that, they got a new conference and they got whatever. I'm not dogging them specifically, but you cannot say you can put that conference up next to the other Power 4 conferences. That's just not realistic. Now, maybe someday those schools become just football powerhouses and they can compete with the Alabamas and the Notre Dames and the Ohio States of the world. This is not that day. And they will have every opportunity to be the group of 6 representative if they kick butt. But you don't get an auto bid. Sorry.
Fill in the blank. The sports moment you watched live, not necessarily in person, but live, that you will never forget is blank.
When I first read this question, I was like, man, what? I couldn't come up with anything. And I was like, duh. Game 7 in 2016, Cubs, Indians.
There you go.
By far the best sporting event I've ever watched. Obviously, I watched it live. I did not see it in person. I was down on the other side of this wall on my TV, my son and I watching that game. He was 9 years old at the time and just like hugging him and like tears and like the whole thing. He thought I was nuts. But I will never forget that. He actually filmed me watching the final out of that game. And so I've got that video someplace. I look like an idiot and I don't care because it was unbelievable. And it was the best event I've ever seen live.
A lot of people were shedding a lot of tears,
man,
over that one. That's for sure.
They just they've got a Game 7 series on Prime Video. I don't know if you've ever watched any of those, but they kind of do a documentary on each.
Yeah, I did.
A bunch of Game 7s.
I watched that recently.
Yeah, it was really good.
I think it was the same. Was it on? Did you say it was on Netflix?
It was on Prime, I believe.
Prime.
Yeah, they have like a Game 7.
Well, yeah, it was all about Game 7, right?
Yeah. Yep. It was really good.
That.
It was really, really good.
Watched it a couple weeks ago, as a matter of fact.
Yep, I watched it last week.
I just found it. Yep.
So it must be fairly new. I don't get on Prime Video that often, but I got on there the other day just like looking for something to watch. I was like, oh, these Game 7 document. The Cup. We're watching it. Let's go. So it was really good.
Now, these were not nearly as emotional as yours that you just described.
Right.
But in terms of, there are two, I couldn't separate one from the other because these are two of the most iconic sports plays, maybe ever, at least of the last 40 plus years. And they happened 2 years apart. The first was the Mookie Wilson, Bill Buckner play, Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. Watch that live and that whole inning, the whole game for that matter. But, like that whole last inning, unfurl and just, the way that it played out, obviously, and again, a little roller up along first behind the bag, it gets through, the whole thing. So the Mookie Wilson, Bill Buckner in 86, and then 2 years later, again, watched it live, the Kirk Gibson home run, 1988 in, Game 1 of the World Series against Dennis Eckersley, who was supposed to be invincible and virtually was invincible that whole season, one of the best seasons that, a reliever has ever had. But Kirk Gibson with one of the most iconic home runs in baseball history, saw that. And then that coincidentally was also the nightcap to Notre Dame, Miami, 1980.
Right. You talked about that, how that day was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
For sporting events. Yeah.
Yep. So those were mine, again, like two of the more iconic things I think that you're ever going to see.
Oh yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
Christopher says Texas and USC national championship game. I remember watching that.
Me too.
As well. And texting one of my friends, we were going back and forth, because USC was obviously the defending champ, and I'm pulling for Texas and Vince Young and the whole thing, and that iconic run into the end zone, that end zone shot when he runs in for the game-winning touchdown. Toons says the 2024 Angeli Bowl in Miami. Is that?
I saw that come up, Toons says, and you got me laughing, literally laughing out loud on that one. I thought that was really funny. Touche to you, my friend.
Be careful. You're going to have Christopher coming after you now.
That was really funny. That was really great. That was awesome.
David said 2006 Notre Dame UCLA.
Oh, wow.
His dad's first Notre Dame game. Wild inning. Yeah, that's an awesome.
That was a great game.
What a present that would be, as your first Notre Dame game.
Yeah, no kidding. That was awesome. That was awesome.
Okay. So this last one, not a question, but Vince, I rewatched Crimson Tide last night. First time in a long time. It was on TV. I set the DVR. I recorded it so I could forward through all the commercials. I don't know. I know that I saw it. I'm pretty sure I saw it in the movie theater. That I saw it. If I didn't see it in the theater, at least on a VHS, I can't tell you the last time that I saw it.
Really?
But
I love that movie.
It was better than I remembered. But again, it's been a long time. It was very good because we had the debate, Crimson Tide or Hunt for Red October, which was the better submarine movie. I think I still hedge toward Hunt for Red October, but Crimson Tide made it a lot closer than I thought it was going to be.
If we're talking about submarine movies, I'm going to throw a vote in for U-571. That was a really good movie with Matthew
not a bad
McConaughey and that whole group. I thought that was a really good movie. Now, Crimson Tide is better, but I think U-571 is a good movie. It's a good solid World War II submarine movie. You know what I mean? But yeah, Crimson Tide, man, I do not concur. This is great movie, man. Just great movie.
I've come to a decision. I'm the captain. Now shut the F up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's great. Gene Hackman.
I mean, you've got multiple mutinies. You've got Hackman and Denzel Washington going head to head. What could you ask for? What more could you ask for? And then you also had James Gandolfini in there, Steve Zahn, Ricky Schroeder. Do you even know who Ricky Schroeder is? Ricky Schroeder was from 1970s. There's a movie called The Champ. He was the kid in The Champ, and The Champ was a boxer. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but he was a well-known child actor. And then I think he did a show. Was it Silver Spoons that he did? There you go, Christopher. Silver Spoons, 80s sitcom. Ricky Schroeder. he was the sailor who, you remember when the hatch, like when they were trying to get him to close the hatch because that lower compartment was flooding when they were trying to do the work. He was the guy who was like screaming, to try to get the guys come out, and they were yelling at him, you got to seal the hatch or we're all going to go down. So finally he seals the hatch. That was Ricky Schroeder, kind of randomly child star in 1995. I don't know like what's happened to him since then, but Ryan Felipe with one of his first roles. He had just like he was like one of the crewmen, and then Viggo Mortensen as well. That was like a star-packed cast, man.
Viggo was he was Weps, right?
Yeah, he was the guy who was at the birthday party at the start, and kind of like double-crossed Denzel a little bit there.
I'm saying, man, that was quality. That was quality.
I agree.
The only bad part of that movie was the dang thing was called the Alabama, and they said Roll Tide. That's the only bad part about
at the time movie. I thought that was pretty cool, though.
I know.
Like, what do we do? Roll Tide.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Right.
The only thing that I kind of push back on, I do think there would be a little bit more ramifications if a sub commander held a pistol to to the head of two different crewmen. Feel like maybe that might have might have been a little bit more blowback for that after the fact.
What happens on the sub?
You get to retire. Go ahead.
Happens on the sub stays on the sub.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
right.
great.
Joe said, "What streaming service?" I believe it was on either TBS or TNT. I don't think it's on a streaming service.
It does float in and out like like things do.
Yeah. I remember the last time we talked about it, I searched for it on the streamers, but you had to pay like a rental fee to get it. And so I waited, and it was just randomly on the other day, and I recorded it.
TBS, TNT, it's on YouTube TV and MGM Plus.
Yeah. Like I've got DirecTV, and so because I've got DirecTV, if you search for it, you can record even if it's not on. You can record it on the on-demand.
Okay,
and not have to pay anything for it.
Gotcha.
So, yeah,
but yeah, great movie. I'm happy you finally found one that I watched. So
yes,
I appreciate that.
And it's so random that a 1995 submarine movie is the movie that you've watched, and like you haven't seen, like any of the two most iconic, long-running series of the last 30 years, Mission Impossible or any of the Bourne movies.
Too much commitment. That's too many movies to sign up for, apparently.
Yeah. Shawshank. Have you seen Shawshank?
I have, but you know what? I've seen it like in the last year or two for the first time. So there you go. So I mean, it's still very pathetic, but I have seen it now. Maybe it was in the last like 5 years, but either way, that movie was from the 90s, I believe. So that's still sad, but very good movie. Really enjoyed that one. Some twists and turns you didn't see coming. So
that's for sure. The National Treasure movies. Have you seen any of those?
Those are my favorite. I would show I've got right here in this drawer, right here, all my movies I used to show in class. Those are definitely both of them. I would show one when we were talking about the Revolution, and I would show National Treasure 2 when we were talking about the Civil War, because those movies are awesome.
Very underrated.
Very underrated. Like I can't say I'm a huge Nick Cage fan in general, but
that was kind of the end of the real Nick Cage era.
Agreed.
I think after Con Air, and Face Off, and
seen all of those. But like for whatever reason, National Treasure, man, he hit home runs. I don't know how that worked, but I love those movies. Probably because it has to do with history, and then there's also the mystery part of it, and the whole deal. And I don't know what the actor's name is, but Riley he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like I've seen those movies 100 times. I still laugh at his jokes. So
he was in something else. I can't think of it now. And I had actually seen him in the something else, and then saw that, and I was like, oh, he's in that. And I can't think of what it is.
I mean, his comedic timing is spot on.
He's good. The female co-lead, whose name I can't think of right now, the blonde, she was in Inglourious Bastards.
National Treasure right there. DVD, baby.
All right, well, that's going to do it for today. We covered a lot of ground from Notre Dame women's basketball, Notre Dame football, and a little bit more. Finished off
right?
with a little Crimson Tide national treasure.
Oh,
Can't go wrong.
Crimson Tide. Now I want to watch that movie.
I'm going to have to rewatch it again sometime soon.
I'm telling you, it's worth the time.
I think so. You need to go back and watch Hunt for Red October, though. I actually saw that not that long ago.
I do, because that one was way back. I haven't watched that one in a very, very long
It's actually showing on one of the channels. I can't tell you which one, but it's on one of the premiums, I think, right now. So I watched part of it last week, I think, as a matter of fact. All right, well, hit that like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.